June 3, 1950, Annapurna's summit, 8,091 meters. Maurice Herzog reached the highest point any human being had ever stood on at that moment in history. He was the first person to summit an 8,000-meter peak. He had no way to know, standing there, that he would not reach base camp for another 3 weeks, or that by the time he did, his hands and feet would be beyond saving. The descent took 21 days. Frostbite had consumed his fingers and toes. A doctor on the team performed amputations in the field, at altitude, without adequate anesthesia. Herzog lost all 10 fingers and all 10 toes. He survived. He was 31 years old. In the 74 years since that first ascent, Annapurna has been climbed by approximately 365 people. Roughly 75 have died attempting it. No other mountain above 8,000 meters kills at this rate. This is the story of how it does it. From the moment a team arrives at base camp to the moment, if they are fortunate, they leave. Most mountains test your strength. Annapurna tests your luck. And sometimes, luck runs out. What Annapurna is? Annapurna is the 10th highest mountain on Earth at 8,091 meters, which makes it the shortest of the 14 8,000-meter peaks. It's not the tallest, it's not the hardest, but it might be the least forgiving mountain on Earth. It sits in north-central Nepal, part of a massif that includes several subsidiary summits and a horseshoe-shaped amphitheater of glaciers and faces that forms the approach to the main summit. It looks like protection. It isn't. It's a trap. Its historical fatality rate, calculated across all summit attempts since 1950, sits between 28% and 32%, depending on the source and the year of calculation. That figure has improved with modern equipment and forecasting, and recent decade statistics show something closer to 13% to 20%. Even at the lower end of that range, Annapurna kills at roughly 5 times the rate of Everest. The reason is not one thing. It is the specific combination of terrain, snowpack, weather pattern, and route geometry that makes Annapurna's particular dangers impossible to fully mitigate through preparation, equipment, or experience. Climbers who have summited K2, Nanga Parbat, and Kangchenjunga describe Annapurna as categorically different, not harder in the technical sense, but more randomly lethal in a way that skill cannot fully address. The approach and base camp. Base camp sits at approximately 4,130 meters at the edge of the Annapurna Sanctuary, a natural glacial bowl enclosed on almost every side by peaks above 6,000 meters. The approach through the Moti Kola Valley is one of the most dramatic in the Himalaya. It is also one of the most avalanche exposed. The walls enclosing the sanctuary shed snow continuously. The mountain doesn't wait for mistakes. It moves when it wants. The approach trail passes beneath faces that avalanche regularly throughout the climbing season. In October 2014, a series of storms dropped unprecedented snowfall on the Annapurna region over 4 days. The resulting avalanches and blizzard conditions killed over 40 people, trekkers, guides, and climbers, across the region in a single event. It was the deadliest disaster in Nepalese mountaineering history. The victims were not on the technical route. Several were on well-established trekking trails considered safe under normal conditions. The sanctuary itself traps weather. Storms that build over the southern plains of Nepal funnel into the glacial bowl and intensify. Climbers at base camp have reported visibility dropping from clear sky to complete whiteout in under 30 minutes. One moment you're navigating, the next, you're guessing. And guessing gets people killed. The enclosing walls that make the sanctuary visually spectacular are the same walls that create the avalanche conditions responsible for more than half of all deaths on the mountain. You can do everything right and still not make it out. The south face and the route to the upper camps. The standard route on Annapurna follows the northwest ridge via the north face. The south face, a 3,000-meter vertical wall first climbed by a British team in 1970, is considered one of the most technically demanding routes on any 8,000-meter peak and is attempted rarely. The northwest route, though less extreme, is not forgiving. There is no safe line, only the less dangerous ones. The climb between base camp and Camp 3 at approximately 6,500 meters crosses terrain that avalanches regularly. Fixed ropes are established by the first expeditions of each season, but the snowpack that surrounds them changes constantly. Climbers have described sections where the route is visually clear, but the snow beneath their feet emits the hollow sound, a low compression wave under the surface. That sound means the mountain is already breaking. You're just standing on it. That indicates a slab ready to release. There is no safe response to that sound except to move quickly and hope the slope does not go while weight is on it. Anatoly Bokriv, the Kazakhstani climber, widely considered one of the strongest high-altitude mountaineers of the 1990s, was killed on Annapurna on Christmas Day, 1997. He was attempting a new route on the south face with 2 other climbers when an avalanche struck. Bokriv had survived the 1996 Everest disaster. He beat the most famous disaster in mountaineering history. Annapurna didn't give him the same chance. The storm that killed 8 climbers and became the subject of multiple books and films, partly through his own extraordinary physical capability. Annapurna killed him without warning on a clear day. The death zone and what the summit push requires. Above 7,000 meters on Annapurna, the terrain narrows onto exposed ridgelines where a fall in either direction means a fall of thousands of meters. The fixed ropes that climbers rely on are maintained season to season, but ultraviolet radiation, temperature cycling, and rockfall degrade them continuously. The upper mountain sees fewer expeditions than Everest or K2, which means the rope maintenance infrastructure that those more commercially trafficked peaks receive is not consistently present on Annapurna. Above 8,000 meters, the death zone begins. The physiological effects are the same as on every other peak at this altitude. The blood thickens, the brain receives insufficient oxygen to function normally, and judgment degrades in ways the affected person cannot detect. The worst part? You won't realize it's happening. High-altitude pulmonary edema and cerebral edema are treatable only by descent, and descent from above 8,000 meters on Annapurna requires navigating the same exposed ridge terrain in a body that is now significantly more impaired than it was on the ascent. Up here, your body is shutting down. The summit window on Annapurna is narrow even by Himalayan standards. The mountain's position and geometry make it one of the first major peaks struck by the monsoon weather systems that move north from the Bay of Bengal each spring, and one of the last to clear after them. Pre-monsoon season typically offers a window of days, not weeks. Post-monsoon windows are shorter still. Expedition teams that have spent weeks acclimatizing and waiting sometimes get a single viable summit day. One day, one chance, and sometimes one mistake. When that window appears, the psychological pressure to use it increases. Turning back might save your life, but it also means everything was for nothing. Regardless of whether conditions on the upper mountain are fully acceptable, is extreme. The descent. The majority of deaths on Annapurna occur on the descent, because the summit isn't the finish line. It's the halfway point. This is consistent across 8,000-meter peaks generally, but the specific geometry of Annapurna's route makes the descent particularly unforgiving. The exposed ridgeline sections that require careful movement on the ascent, when a climber is rested, carrying full oxygen, moving in daylight, must be reversed by a body that has spent hours at extreme altitude, depleted its supplemental oxygen, and is operating on the physiological equivalent of a system in shutdown. You're slower, weaker, and the mountain is the same. The 1950 descent that cost Maurice Herzog his hands and feet lasted 3 weeks, not because the technical difficulty was extreme, but because the compounding effects of frostbite, exhaustion, altitude, and storm made every kilometer of retreat a separate survival problem. His teammate, Louis Lacanal, who reached the summit with him, also lost all his toes. He reached the top of the world and paid for it piece by piece. A supporting climber lower on the mountain lost fingers. Herzog lived until 2012. He was 93 years old. In interviews in his later years, he described Annapurna not as a conquest, but as something the mountain had briefly allowed. He said he had never stopped wondering why it let him leave when it had taken so much from him on the way down. The ratio has never been comfortable, and nothing about the mountain suggests it is going to change. Annapurna doesn't care how strong you are, or how experienced, or how prepared. It decides who leaves and who doesn't, and the most dangerous part, no one ever knows which one they'll be.